Now, what we're hearing from President Trump is that the new Iranian leaders, whoever they may be, want to talk. The government officials from Oman backed that up and said, yeah, Iran does want to talk. But on the other side of the coin, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps just put out a statement that said they're going to unleash the greatest offensive operation in Iran's history, and it's going to start any moment now, is what the statement said.
Okay, so I want to bring you some general status updates out of Iran, because I think what we are witnessing right now is an Iranian government in complete disarray following the death of the supreme leader and many key officials. It doesn't matter how much strength or stability they're trying to project. The simple reality is that the regime as we know it is effectively over and done with. Now, whether we see an official toppling of the Islamic Republic or the new government tries to reform and moderate itself, as we've seen other countries do that still claim to have revolutionary governments, but sort of only in name, that part remains to be seen. But what you're witnessing at the moment is a complete decapitation of Iran's ability to continue waging war over the next week. I think it's going to be basically done with. And this general ideology of Shia Islamic Jihad across the entire region and constantly antagonizing their neighbors, being these just insane fanatic radicals, especially with that geriatric supreme leader from the 80s now out of power, very likely will not be the case. Possibly for the very reason, by the way, that the new officials in charge, right, the new government, you would have to imagine does not want to share the same fate as the deceased supreme leader. As a matter of fact, according to Washington, it is being reported that these new people in charge in Iran, the new government, is attempting right now to reach out and have diplomatic talks. They want to find a peaceful solution to the problem, and I really wonder why that is the case. So we'll tell you about that. I also want to address the American side of this, and that is frankly the human cost of this war, because we are watching retaliation attempts by the Islamic radicals, both abroad and even here domestically in the United States. And this is unfortunately a very real human cost to the conflict. These things are not bloodless. They don't come without serious tragedy and serious loss of life. And while the overall casualty count might be extremely low for a historic invasion or toppling of a government or a big military operation like this, right? Low American casualties, it doesn't make it any better or any less significant for, say, the service members or even the American civilians who have been killed over the course of this conflict. And so I do think that it is important to obviously remember and honor these people at the same time. So we'll do both of those things in today's video, guys. But first, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you subscribe to the channel down below. Okay, that greatly helps us expand our coverage, reach new horizons, and it ensures that we can keep doing these videos. So we appreciate that. And I want to first of all start off this video by honoring the 3 U.S. service members that we know thus far have been killed in the Middle East at this time due to military policy. We don't know who they are, what service branch, how they even died necessarily, whether that was in direct combat or something incidental as a result of the war. But what we can certainly say is that every American life of our service member is deeply precious. And you know, this is something that, again, is a very unfortunate real human cost of war. And by the way, something that, you know, the president will have to contend with, right? That's why we should all be hoping and praying right now that this conflict is resolved and is over as quickly as possible, right? And that we win this as quickly as possible, which is also so important. But that said, take a listen to what Trump had to say today about that.
Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case. but America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the terrorists who have waged war against basically civilization.
So again, our prayers go out to the families of these heroes. That's what we know thus far. 3 U.S. soldiers killed, 5 critically wounded. As President Trump says, he's vowing retaliation on behalf of the United States. That's what you have to do at this moment, right? Some people might say, oh, we started a military operation at the first sight of casualties, we're going to pull out. There's no turning back now, right? When you start something like this, you have to finish the job or else things are just going to get worse for basically every party involved, including the U.S. military. And so, but at the same time, it is true. While I would say U.S. casualties for a military operation of this scale right now remain relatively low, and again, I know that doesn't make it any better for the actual families of these service members, but while they are relatively low, the longer this goes, the more room that opens up for U.S. casualties, which is why it is so important. A lot of progress has been made thus far. We basically annihilated them on day 1 and 2, but you have to win this war as quickly as possible, right? That is key for morale. That is key for public support. That is key for the lives of our own service members. Again, progress seems to be being made there, but it's a very important kind of facet of this all to remember. But it doesn't stop there. Last night in Austin, Texas, we saw a mass shooting take place at a bar on Saturday night. And what we now know about this attack is that it was a terrorist attack perpetrated by this individual right here. He allegedly wore a hoodie that says "Property of Allah" underneath the hoodie. He was alleged to have an undershirt with an Iranian flag on it. And this man, according to authorities, has been identified as a 53-year-old naturalized U.S. citizen who was born in and immigrated from the African nation of Senegal. And this likewise is a very unfortunate byproduct of, conflicts, I guess you could say, sometimes in the Middle East, right? Is that because these terrorists cannot beat us by conventional means, they just try to infiltrate our country and massacre random citizens who had nothing to do with the conflict itself. And while it's true on one hand, while that part of it is true on one hand, I would likewise also say it stands as yet another example of the failures in our immigration policy. Okay, I know some might, because I would say, first of all, that as it pertains on the war on terror, we were told, for instance, in the 2000s by the Bush Republicans and the neocons that, hey, we're fighting this war, we're fighting our problems over there so the problems don't come here. And then what do? Open our immigration system and open our borders to millions of people who would quite literally bring those problems over here, okay? And it's the same story here. You imported someone into your country who was an ideological radical, you didn't notice it, and then, of course, what does he do? Perpetrate a terrorist attack against our citizens. Now, of course, I'm sure some people would point out that, this person was a naturalized U.S. citizen, which is to say they were a legal immigrant, apparently naturalized back in 2013 under the Obama administration. But again, I would say, legal or not, that is still a fundamental failure of your immigration policy, right? If you allowed someone into your country that shouldn't have been there and then they go to do something to kill Americans, that's a failure of immigration policy. I don't care whatever way you spin it. I would secondly point out that, just because he's from Senegal, that means that everything is okay. He's a naturalized citizen, right? Senegal, ladies and gentlemen, is a country that was recently added to the new travel and visa ban implemented in 2026 by the U.S. State Department. You might have heard that in recent months, that the State Department would now be pausing all new visa applications from a very long list of countries that they either deemed as, say, terrorist hotbeds, or the government was too dysfunctional to really get adequate or sufficient government records. Senegal, ladies and gentlemen, is on that State Department list. But because of prior American immigration policy, including of that under the the Obama administration, this guy, of course, given legal status, given citizenship, he was never part of this country, obviously, in heart and spirit, and that is, again, what you saw. So, yes, one could argue, well, we started these problems in the Middle East, and that's why this guy was mad. That's why there's terrorism. But these people bomb things anyway. The truth is, the terrorism came here because of open borders immigration policy, okay? And the difference here in this Trump administration is that It doesn't seem to me they're trying that approach, right? Oh, let's start wars in the Middle East and then import all the angry refugees who are going to bomb us, okay? So, but unfortunately, again, because of past U.S. immigration policy, that's just what we have to deal with. So that is, of course, the domestic situation. Again, prayers to all Americans who, civilian or military, who have lost their lives over the course of this conflict. I do now, though, want to discuss the situation over in the Middle East, because to make a long story short, it's a lot worse right now for them than one could say it is for us. What we know through day 1 and 2 of this operation is that Iran has lost the following: their defense minister, so the person actually in charge of their military, right? So there's a lack of leadership there. The commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, which I likewise pointed out, well, you can't just take out the supreme leader, right? Because the IRGC specifically is an entity that I sort of compare them to the Nazi SS, right? They're this ideological, fanatic, paramilitary special forces organization that you could absolutely see trying to perpetrate a coup to take power over the country, and they're going to rule even more radically. Well, the commander of the Revolutionary Guard now taken out as well. So that's going to be hugely weakening them there. National Security Advisor, the head of Khameni's military bureau, and the chairman of the Organization of Defensive and Innovation and Research. So you're talking here about basically most of the top military brass, as well as the supreme leader, of course, being eliminated there. And in total, what we know is that well over 40 senior Iranian officials have now been neutralized. The official number that Trump gave in a recent interview a couple of hours ago was 48 top-ranking government officials in total. Take a listen.
Fox News has learned from a senior Israeli security official. Israel assesses that more than 40 senior Iranian security and regime figures were killed in strikes during the opening operation that Israel launched this morning with the United States against the Iranian regime. This official goes on to say this is one of the largest regime decapitation operations conducted in modern warfare history, and that Israeli intelligence managed to infiltrate the Iranian security echelon, making the strikes possible, this official explained. But again, this news just coming into us, we were able to confirm it, that a senior Israeli official telling Fox News more than 40 senior Iranian security and regime figures were killed in the opening strike this morning. And John and Sandra, as you can hear on our phones here, and we're going to stay here. Our security is giving me the nod to stay here. Tel Aviv is under a significant attack right now. And again, this news breaking that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khameni, has been killed. We are now reporting exclusively that 40 senior regime figures were also killed in the strikes. The Iranians are going to try to target as much of Israel as possible, and that's exactly what is happening right now.
And it's worth noting as well, on top of basically the entire senior government leadership structure, that at least half of Iran's ballistic missile launchers have been taken out. And so while you're watching them basically shoot off everything that they have right now, if we can wear the storm for the next couple of days, they're not going to have a lot left to fight with, especially also given it's been reported that the production sites where they make more ballistic missiles likewise have been blown up. And I will say as well, as it pertains to what's left of the Iranian government, I know they, on paper, appointed a new supreme leader. The regime, in its desperate last moments, is trying to claim everything is fine. You know, we have a secession plan completely lined up. That, no, it's just not physically possible that you take out not just the supreme leader, but a ton of the top military and government leadership, right? Basically the top next 40 contenders who could potentially take over the country and still survive in the exact same way. Again, I don't care if you have a supreme leader still on paper. And I think the other reality that we have to contend with here is you have to imagine that many of the lower level, especially younger officials who are likely still alive right now, probably to an extent, think this is crazy, maybe see what the supreme leader has done as a little bit crazy. They might still be sort of like Islamic revolutionaries, right? But not as intense. But because of the fact it's a repressive regime, because of the fact that, everyone was kind of terrified of Ayatollah Khameni, they don't really say anything. They just play along. But of course, once the guy is gone, you push for radical reform. The analogies I might make to that is, for instance, the Soviet Union when Stalin died, right? Stalin was this dictatorial, angry maniac. Everyone was terrified of him. But once he was finally gone, even the top Soviet officials, they breathed a sigh of relief. They said, okay, how do we moderate? How do we reform this country? The same is true of the CCP after Mao Zedong died, right? Both of those countries you saw got significantly less fanatic and ideological in sort of their old school revolutionary brand once their basically geriatric leader passed on. And then, the younger leadership kind of says, all right, maybe we should take this in a different direction. I would say that's a strong possibility in Iran right now. Again, you have to imagine, especially the younger generation, maybe is pro-regime, who knows, right? But not quite as fanatic as, say, the original supreme leader is. And even if that's not the case, there's a second factor they have to contend with here as well. They're the ones still standing, but watching the capabilities that America and now its allies have in this war, do they necessarily want to be next? Well, I don't think that's the case, which is exactly why I fully believe these reports stating that a senior White House official said Sunday that Iran's new potential leadership has suggested that it is open to talks with the United States after American and Israeli forces launched a major attack against Tehran, killing the country's supreme leader and other high-ranking officials. By the way, last point I'd like to make about all these officials that are gone, right? Again, you can claim the government's going to be the same. But let's actually make that analogy, say, to the United States in a hypothetical grounds, okay? Obviously, we're not calling for any real-world things to happen, but hypothetically, let's say that the president and basically his entire cabinet and the Speaker of the House and the military and like all the top officials of the United States disappeared overnight. What would happen next? Some chaos would happen. And let's say, right, maybe some senator or the next person in succession ends up stepping up. Maybe they're the same political party of the president, sure. But the government still wouldn't be the same. It might be the same on paper, but definitely you understand, right? Policy is going to change. The vibes are going to change. It's not the same people in charge anymore. Same story here with Iran, right? So it's actually copium to say, yeah, we can lose our 40 top officials and the country will sustain completely normal as it was before. No, obviously something's going to be different, and that's true of every country on earth. So that is exactly why this official, who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss internal administration deliberations, said President Trump is eventually willing to talk, but for now the military operation continues unabated. By the way, as it should and it has to. You have to make, as I said, you're going to start something like this, whether you support, whether those of you watching, right, support what's happening or not, you have to win, just factually speaking, right? There's no turning back now, and that's the reality. The official did not say who the potential new Iranian leaders are or how they made their alleged willingness to talk known, but what is known right now is, quote, they want to talk and I've agreed to talk, so I will be talking to them through these back channels. So we'll ultimately, again, see what happens here, but yeah, I think secretly behind the scenes, you have to imagine nobody wants to share the same fate as Khameni did. And so, much like Venezuela, where we likely cut a deal, right, with Maduro's VP and allowed basically the remaining government around him to serve our interests and basically act as a puppet for the time being. Wouldn't be surprised if that's how this ends over in Iran. But ultimately, guys, we will have to see what happens there. But updates for now. We'll let you know a lot more in the coming week. Oh, and by the way, new information just came in once we finished recording. Apparently, it's now being reported, conflicting earlier reports that a new supreme leader had been appointed, that a new interim council is now running Tehran, basically governing by committee with what's left of the existing government. What you could basically see it as a provisional government. And what do we know about provisional governments, especially when they're ruling by committee? No one's really in charge. We don't understand is that they're largely dysfunctional, right? They do not have a ruling mandate or really any authority or credibility with the people. One could argue, even with the pro-regime people in Iran, certainly, I don't know, this long list of people all governing by committee do not have the credibility with them that, say, the original supreme leader does. And so, yeah, again, I have to imagine just listening to this now and hearing, they're going to be ruling by some committee. Yeah, that's definitely going to work out so great. That, again, the regime, at least as we know it, is over, okay? There's going to be a serious power vacuum left here, likely a power struggle. We don't know what comes out at the end of it, but I doubt it's the same Islamic regime, certainly, that we knew about before. And especially, really, you're going to be governing a country through wartime by a provisional committee of people that most of the public probably is not even super aware of. Yeah, good luck with that, right? I think what you're watching, even fighting right now out in the Middle East, shooting missiles, is basically the remnants of a corpse that doesn't yet know that it's dead, right? So sure, the missiles can shoot on autopilot. You can still have individuals put those off. But in terms of grander military strategy, any idea how to govern the country, very likely not existing so much anymore with, all of the top leadership out like this. And by the way, top military leadership, You can have soldiers follow what they were taught to do, but what happens on day 3 or 4 or 5 where the orders stop flowing down? Who takes charge in that case? We have no idea. And no wonder these people are trying to beg for diplomacy because, again, good luck trying to rule a country through a war with a provisional interim council government. But that's what we know about for now, guys. All right, just a quick update there. Until then, see you guys later. God bless and peace.